In 2006, millions of people participated in protests nationwide over a proposed change to the United States immigration policy. The protests began in response to H.R. 4437, a bill titled the Border Protection, Anti-Terrorism, and Illegal Immigration Control Act of 2005. The bill attempted to raise penalties for undocumented immigrants and classify immigrants as felons as well as anyone who aided them. The bill's continued effort to criminalize undocumented immigrants sparked national debate and motivated millions of people to stand up to xenophobia and racism. On March 10, 2006, an estimated 100,000 individuals stood in protest in Chicago, while on March 25th, over 500,000 people marched for immigrant rights in downtown Los Angeles. By May 1st, 2006, the nationwide boycott, El Gran Paro, the American boycott, was organized. People were encouraged to boycott the United States, schools, and businesses to demonstrate that immigrants were a powerful force. While immigrants' rights protests were successful in shedding light into the renewed nationwide hatred against undocumented immigrants, it also created a backlash that garnered several anti-immigrant legislation. As a result, immigrant incarceration, deportation, and criminalization skyrocketed. According to Angela Davis, as of 2003, an estimated 2 million out of 9 million in the world inhabit U.S. prisons, jails, youth facilities, and immigration detention centers. In Minnesota, while detentions remained low before 2005, it steadily increased with the rest of the United States. For this reason, the geographical and political overview of impacts of Latino immigration, incarceration, and criminalization in Minnesota is important to understand. The Minnesota Immigration Customs Enforcement Office, located in St. Paul, covers and processes cases from the following 5 states: Minnesota, North and South Dakota, Iowa, and Nebraska. More specifically, the state of Minnesota currently has 2 main facilities reserved for large amounts of immigrant detainees, as indicated in the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement website: the Sherbrooke County facility, located in Elk River, and the Ramsey County Adult Detention Center, located in St. Paul. However, several state prisons and county jails across the state also house detainees through intergovernmental service agreements, also known as IGSAs. IGSAs are negotiated separately because ICE and in each county. Thus, it is often unclear the amount of money paid for detainees per day, as it varies per facility and term. In 2006, a total of about 1,300 undocumented immigrants working for the meat company Swift & Co. were arrested and detained in one of the largest immigration enforcement actions in U.S. history. Due to fear, the company lost hundreds of workers who did not show up to work in the following days. The meat processing plants were located in Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska, Texas, Colorado, and Utah. Pedro Lira, who worked for the company in Worthington, Minnesota, states that immigration raids were largely impacted his community through fear of leaving home and trusting people with their status. The Obama administration, characterized by the largest number of deportations under a presidency, shifted tactics in the last couple of years, replacing factory immigration raids with what are now known as silent raids. Silent raids are part of the quieter enforcement strategy that sends federal agents to scour company records for undocumented workers. While some are deported and incarcerated in the process, most cases result in being fired from the workplace. 2 of the largest silent raids in Minnesota took place at IBM Janitorial Services in 2009 and chain restaurant Chipotle Mexican Grill in 2010. As of 2015, the St. Paul Field Office for Immigration and Customs Enforcement deported 1,740 immigrants, compared with more than 2,820 in 2014. That represented a 50% drop from a high in 2010. While the statistics seem hopeful, it is imperative that we take a deeper look at the environment that undocumented immigrants in Minnesota still occupy. In INS raids and how immigrant women are fighting back, Renee Salcedo notes that thousands and thousands of immigrants women wake up every day wondering, is today the day when I will be caught by INS? Is today the day when I walk my children to school or take my kids to the health center or go to talk to a social worker? Is today the day when someone will betray me and I will be reported? As in the case of local Minnesota residents Leticia Zuniga and Carla Perez, who were sexually harassed and then threatened for deportation by their employers, or Dolores, who was detained for 2 years without seeing her family. In another case, 24-year-old Latino Minnesota resident recalls his experience as he states, "I've been detained and deported several times. The first time I was apprehended, I was 11 years old. My mother, my older brother, and I spent nearly a month trying to cross the border, only to be caught, detained, and sent back to random locations in northern Mexico. In one instance, my brother and his friend Raimundo got sent back to a remote location, and my ama and I to a different one. I recall the distress of not knowing where they were, having to look for them all over the northern border. At some point, mi ama thought about giving up and seeking help from the police, but we were lucky to be part of a network of immigrants that are consistently looking out for each other in a privileged journey to El Norte." According to the United States Border Patrol Southwest Border Sector, approximately 6,330 people have died crossing the United States-Mexico border from 1998 to 2014, largely comprising of brown immigrants. Incidentally, very little media has covered the horrific way people die trying to cross over to the perceived land of opportunity, and even less attention is given to the way that the United States has played a key role in forced migration from Latin America, immigrants migrating to the north. Additionally, the organizations are documenting Border Patrol violence along the southwest border. The Southern Border Communities Coalition has cited roughly 39 deaths by Border Patrol agents, which include the deaths of teenage boys killed for throwing rocks at agents. In Los Angeles County, a record 14 out of 23 people who have been fatally killed by law enforcement are Latino. Our government, as well as mainstream media, is failing Latinas and Latinos. Immigration, incarceration, and deportation in Minnesota, while different from the rest of the United States, is a representative of a long history of dehumanization and displacements of Latinos and Latinas dating back to the 1800s. In Gringo Justice, author Alfredo Miranda states that the criminalization of Chicanos and Chicanas has been persistent since the initial contact between Anglo settlers and the Mexicans along what is now known as the U.S.-Mexico border. The anti-immigrant sentiment is an extension of border violence from the Southwest that has largely impacted Mexican and Central American immigrants. While the numbers of immigration incarceration have dwindled and shifted, anti-immigration policies demonizing immigrants has risen. The number can be indicative of several issues, but does not reflect the nuance of Latino immigrant experience. It is for this reason that we must pay close attention to the continued consequences of mass incarceration.